All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I am Chase Corrington, and this is my YouTube channel. And today it's Wednesday, and so Wednesday Wisdom of the Ages by Dr. Wayne Dyer is what we're going to be continuing to read. And today we are on chapter titled Communication. If you've got the book yourself, or if you'd like to get the book and read along with me and actually have the physical copy for personal and future reference, we're on page 91, looking at communication in a poem by William Blake, 1757 to 1827. William Blake was an English poet, engraver, painter, and mystic. Sounds like my kind of guy. Especially the painter and mystic there at the end. His poetry is best known for its mysticism and complex symbolism, which is one of my favorite things to look at when studying. Hope you got yourself a nice warm cup of tea or coffee, or maybe your favorite beverage, depending what time of the day it is. And let's go ahead and dive into this. This is William Blake's poem titled A Poison Tree. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with smiles and with soft, deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree. Wow, that's a deep one, ladies and gentlemen. To me, he's talking about when you keep anger and resentment and wrath inside of you and you don't express it, then the way he puts it here, I was angry with my friend, I told my wrath, and it did end. Angry with the foe, told it not, and it did grow. And then he watered it with his fears and tears and fears, good group, and sunned it with smiles, deceitful wiles. It grew both day and night till it bore an apple bright. And then his foe knew it was his. I think that's something that we don't often recognize, is when we have these angers, we think it's somebody else's problem. We think it's their fault. And it's so easy to see that our angers and frustrations are our own. So let's go into what Wayne Dyer talks about here, because the part that confused me there at the end of that poem was, in the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree. If you get the metaphor there, leave a comment and let me know. But let's go on and find out what Dr. Dyer describes to us about this in his chapter titled Communication. William Blake, Dr. Dyer begins, is one of my heroes. In his lifetime, he was a consummate poet, painter, an artist, and a visionary mystic who was largely ignored by his contemporaries and considered mad, which I'll add most mystics probably are. He lived his entire life on the edge of poverty and died in neglect. Damn. Yet today, this man is regarded as one of the most original and greatest figures in literary history, and his original engravings are rare treasures worth millions of dollars. Talk about legacy, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't it so sad that he didn't get to experience the abundance and beauty of the legacy that he had created? I'm adding this on my own. that he didn't get to experience this wonderfulness. He lived his entire life on the edge of poverty and died in neglect. But he was one of the greatest figures in literary history and has pieces, engravings that are worth millions of dollars. It makes you think, it's like, if it's so much the same, like we always hear, why such different fortunes and fates? That's a great Rush song. I've devoured his epic poems, Wayne Dyer continues, and quoted him extensively in my lifetime. And deciding what contribution of his to include in this book has been a considerable challenge. His most famous words are the opening lines in Allegories of Innocence, written in 1803. To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wildflower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. Speaks Blake to preoccupation with the power of the mind to perceive God or the infinite, the value of our imagination and the oneness of the universe. These are the kinds of lines that I love, ladies and gentlemen. I could read those last few lines over and over every day of my life and enjoy it every time. I've written elsewhere in this book, Wayne Dyer continues, on these themes. And so I've chosen a poison tree as another great example of what this madman genius offers you and me today. From his creative pen some 200 plus years ago, while writing in the midst of the French Revolution, which was transpiring only 100 or so miles from where Blake was writing. I always love learning about history too, in these kind of ways. A poison tree is a very basic message for maintaining loving relationships through communication. And don't so many of us need to work on communication? I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath. Wayne Dyer says the key thought here is to communicate. My wrath did not end. Such a simple way to express a profound truth. When you feel something and you have the common sense or the courage to express that feeling to your loved ones, the rage and the fury disappear almost as if by magic. And I'll say, I can attest to that. It's kind of weird how it works. And I think it's so great because that sentiment right there, when you feel something and you have the common sense or courage to express that feeling to your loved ones, is just what was being talked about in Truth and Beauty by John Keats, and then Passion by Percy Shelley. Being able to express that love and that passion to create a better level of life. And here it's telling us to express and have the courage to express our feelings of rage. Maybe I told my wrath, and my wrath did not. When I was angry with my friend, I told my wrath did end. So we're not saying be wrathful, because the true enemy is anger. That's the only enemy. But if we can find a way to clearly and not belligerently express I'm just kind of adding my own thoughts here, not belligerently, attackingly express our angers and our frustrations. If we can do it in a communicative way, then maybe what is being talked about here can be reached, because I have experienced that, to where the rage and the fury disappear almost as if by magic after you had the courage to express the thoughts about that feeling to your loved one, whoever. My inclination in the past, Wayne Dyer continues, has often been to stay silent when I feel angry. And, some of us aren't lucky enough to be that kind of person. or we end up yelling a lot. I am somebody who remains very silent when I'm angry. Depending on the people, though, you know, sometimes you're close enough with people that you really want to have a conversation with them. And sometimes a little candor goes a long ways. But I'm going to stop getting off the writing here and let's get back into it. To stay silent when you feel angry. I admit to wanting to stew about it, play it over and over in my mind where I've extended dialogues with the person. How many of us have done that? Where you're going over the argument in your head. It's a bad practice because you create what you think about. So if you're going over arguments in your head, stop yourself and go, what do I want to create? I ask myself that question multiple times a day, not often out loud, but in my mind, when I'm having a bad thought, I stop it and go, what do I want? What do I want to create? My inclination, play it over and over in my head where I've extended dialogues with the person you feel angry toward. As long as I take this position of freezing out my loved ones or friends with this kind of activity, the wrath persists. Yet when it finally does come out and we're able to communicate about it, expressing our authentic feelings, regardless of how absurd they may sound to the other person, magically and almost instantaneously, the fury subsides. Back to the poem. I was angry with my foe. I told it not. My wrath did grow. This is precisely the lesson that I have had to learn, and I admit to still working on it each day. And I think all of us should, ladies and gentlemen. In past relationships, actually, I'm going to cut in there. The truth, this is a great lesson, which I wish I could follow all the time, but it's still great. The truth always wins. It just takes time to breathe. And in relationship situations, when you avoid the truth now to have an easier communication and avoid a fight, avoid an argument, what happens is later the truth comes out, except there's resentment built up over the amount of time that the truth wasn't expressed. And if this is the kind of relationship that you have, you're avoiding arguments and fights because it's easier to just not say anything and stay quiet. Those fruits of anger and resentment build up in you. And after years, you end up having 72 different things that you've built up resentments about. And it's just too late. And I think too many of us do this in our life, whether it's parents with children or, husbands and wives, or even there's many different possibilities. I think we need to, the truth always wins. It just takes time to breathe. And if you avoid the hard truth now, it will be harder later. It's a key lesson. Now, in past relationships, I created foes out of those I loved the most. Wayne Dyer says, the moment I made them foes, I kept my wrath inside, playing intellectual games with myself and creating an unbelievably complex scenario that only I was privy to. See, that's the other thing. Our anger is our own. Thus, especially if we don't share it. It's like people aren't mind readers out here, and if they are, they probably got to keep that to themselves anyways. And so, you do this, you create these unbelievably complex scenarios that you're the only one that knows about. And then you find yourself asking your partner questions about things that you've been building up in your mind for 2 weeks. That's just ridiculous. And they're like, what are you talking about? And then, it's this. Thus, the inclination to keep my wrath within unexpressed allowed me to create what Blake called a poison tree. This is good. This is good relationship advice on communication here. I would water it, with my tears and sun it with deceitful smiles. Dang, that's powerful. So when you don't want to have that fight and you're having that angry thought where you're just like, yeah, it's everything's fine. And it builds up the poison tree. And the result, it would continue to grow and bear fruit. And the fruit is definitely poison, ladies and gentlemen. So much so that it would eventually destroy those to whom I had given the tag of foe. There they were, outstretched beneath the tree. Wow. It's a deep one. It's starting to make more sense to me, though, that last line there. So it's almost like us building this poison within ourselves, this poison tree of these intellectual games that we play with, the wrath that we keep inside that we don't express, and then we nurture it and grow it. And we build these unbelievably complex scenarios that we're the only ones privy to. And then the wrath that we keep within us unexpressed creates this poison tree within us. And we keep it hidden. And it bears this fruit. And the loved ones around us, or whoever it is, coworkers, children, this fruit is barren, and they don't know that it's a poison tree. And so they're reaching out for your fruit while you're slowly destroying the ones you love with your own mind while they're outstretched beneath the tree. Wow. If you're getting something out of this, ladies and gentlemen, smash the like button and let me know what you're thinking in the comments section. I'll continue. The message of this poem is profound. Heck yeah. It applies not only in personal relationships, but in dealing with everyone in our lives. Anytime you feel that spark go off inside you and your wrath begins to grow, you are headed for a potential morass. The way I'll say you're going in and planting another poison tree. That's just my own. The way out of that potential morass, Wayne Dyer continues, is to stop and make that person a friend rather than a foe. Tell that person, and this is where we really need the advice, is like, so how do we communicate these things if we want to avoid this from happening in our lives? Because I guarantee every one of us knows about 6 examples of people that do this in their own lives, and it might even be us. Now, so what can we do? It applies to everyone. Anytime we feel that spark going off inside of us and our wrath begins to grow, we're headed for the morass. So make the person a friend rather than a foe. Communicate. Tell that person, I feel that you are attempting to manipulate me right now. See, in the mind, it's like, you can't say that. They're fighting words. But honestly, someone would be like, what? Really? Like how? What? Feel that you're attempting to manipulate me right now, and I would prefer that to stop. This kind of honest, no-nonsense statement will put the wrath aside and stop the growth of a poison tree that will ultimately destroy you or whomever has become your foe. Similarly, in close family relationships, when you feel something like anger, practice mustering up the courage to say how you feel without being abusive or loud. I think that the loudness and the tone of your voice makes 1,000% difference. You can ask someone if they closed the door all the way, but if you say it a certain way, it's antagonizing and attacking. Did you close the door all the way? You know what I mean? Or it's like, did you close the door all the way? There's different ways to use your voice, even though you're trying to express the same thing. So when you feel something like anger, practicing mustering up the courage to say how you feel without being abusive or loud, ladies and gentlemen. I found with my children that when I give the silent treatment, Wayne Dyer continues, the anger doesn't subside. In fact, it grows worse because both of us are growing our own poison tree inside because we have made foes of each other. I think that's an even deeper one there that could have its own chapter. When we sit down and discuss and I express how I'm feeling and what my disappointments are, it generally leads to an open discussion in which we both express ourselves and ends with a hug and I love you too, Dad. Amazingly, I told my wrath and my wrath did end, Wayne Dyer says. These are 8 words that you might want to memorize as you think about ways to make your relationships work at a blissful level more frequently. It is inevitable in any partnership for 2 people to have conflict. And you know, that's something we always got to remember is there is never going to be, whether it's father, son, mother, daughter, whatever, or, you know, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife. There is no perfect relationships. And if they are, then there's probably some poison trees. Maybe. I mean, there's a chance there could be a few perfect relationships where it's just, but you would have to have 2 fully self-actualized, enlightened individuals. And, you know, that kind of stuff isn't short work. You either have to be like a really old soul when you come into this lifetime and already have all this wisdom of the ages, or you have to study your entire life and hopefully get there at some point. That's why I'm doing this. Now, I told my wrath today, these 8 words could help you make blissful relationships a part of your life more frequently. I often express my feeling that in any relationship in which 2 people agree on everything, one of them is unnecessary. Your soulmate is often the person who is most unlike you. He did a TV interview or something one time where he went on and said, your soulmate is the person that you can't stand, that you just can't stand. I think he said it more funny than that, but anyways, let's continue. The one who can push the buttons that send you into a frenzy. That person is your soulmate precisely because of this power. When you find yourself in a fury, the person you perceive as causing it is your greatest teacher at that moment. That's why I was saying it takes a extremely enlightened, self-actualized individual to be able to have, it would take 2 of them to be able to have a perfect relationship where 2 people are completely different, but so high level consciousness that they don't do the erroneous behavior patterns that all of us normal people do. But, you know, these people, the one who can push our buttons, that's most unlike us, sends us into a frenzy. The person is your soulmate because they are our greatest teachers. They're teaching us that we have not mastered ourselves. The person is teaching you that you have not yet mastered yourself. See, I've listened to Wayne Dyer so much, I know exactly where he's going here. That you still do not know how to choose peace as that button is being pushed. And I think that's key to discerning whether or not you are a high level consciousness, you know, one of the things Wayne Dyer taught and learned from his mentor is that the definition of enlightenment is being immersed and surrounded by peace. And I think I'll add to that, that is been generated from inside. That's not been given to you from outside, that you have chosen and created and cultivated and grown. It's a garden to nurture and protect, ladies and gentlemen, this peace. The way to that peace, Wayne Dyer continues, is to tell your friend or your lover or your child or your parent or your mother-in-law exactly how you feel. Do this poem. That made me laugh because so many people are like, oh, I gotta go, you know, when Thanksgiving or whatever comes around. That's the big complaint. My crazy, you know, whether it's whatever, my crazy aunt or mother-in-law or uncle, you know, all these kind of things. Tell that person exactly how you feel, but do it from a position of being detached and honest, rather than, I'm adding, the ego point of view, where we're attached and we want to win and be right. You don't have to win to find peace. Do this from a position of being detached and honest, and watch how your wrath disappears. You will have removed entirely the possibility of nurturing and producing a poison tree. To put the ideas of William Blake's famous poem into your life, begin by following these simple suggestions. Rubber meets the road, practicality, ladies and gentlemen. This is the way that we could begin to work on these philosophies. When you find yourself in the midst of a freeze out, either self-imposed or otherwise, break the silent treatment with a simple opener. Say something like, can we both agree to state how we're feeling right now without any judgment about it? I mean, it might need to be smaller if you haven't done any work like this yet. So can we both agree to state how we're feeling simply, and then later work on not having any judgment? I know, because that doesn't, then you just fight more. You have to work on yourself about being able to detach. I'm going to keep going because that goes into 1,000 different philosophies on its own there. That's more spiritual. Use your opener to state directly how you feel by prefacing your statements with I feel. I feel. Not you have done this, or this is, you know, I feel. Because I feel, I'm just rambling here, I think I feel is different from, you know, like what you think or what you think you know kind of thing. Like what you feel is personal. And feelings, like if you're angry with somebody, instead of being like, you know, you're always doing this and that and these things and those things, you should be like, anger. And they'll be like, what? You should be like, I'm feeling anger. And that will open up a whole different kind of dialogue, even if it still is an argument. It'll be a different kind of argument. It'll be about emotions. And that goes back to what I said earlier. Anger is the only true enemy. Once you defeat your anger, there are no more enemies. I learned that from, if you know where that teaching comes from, leave that in the comments and let me know, because that's a good one. Anger is the only enemy. Now, I feel, remember, that's the statement. Emphasize that at this moment, Wayne Dyer continues, what you most need is a loving response to the way you're feeling. Own your feeling and feel your feeling as you would with a friend whom you can count on sharing your feelings with. At issue here is not the problem, but communicating your feelings. Then listen and hear the feelings of the other person with love and without defensiveness, trying to be right about the issue. Befriend your feelings. Give yourself a self-imposed time limit for how long you will stay in a period of no talking. If you say 1 hour, then no matter how embarrassed or hurt you might feel, open the lines of communication. You will see that communicating rather than stifling yourself will end the rage almost immediately. Don't ever go to bed still holding on to your wrath. This is, I think, the most important teaching in which I have subconsciously practiced in my own relationship. Is like, if there's a fight and it's late at night, I'm staying up till 2 a.m. until we've figured it out, even if I have to be up at 4:30. I'm like, I am not going to go to bed, with whoever it is, just angry at me. I've always been the kind of person that when I get people upset with me, I almost do everything I can to like remedy the situation. And I think, see, that's one of my own areas that I need to work on. I'm too much of a people pleaser, and sometimes that can lead to kind of avoiding pleasing yourself. But there's a fine line there. When you talk about fixing yourself before focusing on others, some people start to think of narcissism and stuff like that. But if we don't love ourselves, we can't love somebody else. If you don't have happiness in your own life, how are you going to make other people's happy? So if we want to make other people's happy, we got to start making ourselves happy, ladies and gentlemen. And this is, once again, why I'm doing this kind of research and producing this kind of content. So hopefully one day somebody will figure out the wisdom of the ages and read between the lines and start living a self-actualized, a higher quality life. Hopefully it'll be me eventually. I would be lying, though, if I said that my quality of life hasn't increased over the last few years by becoming obsessed with spirituality and psychology and self-help and personal development, and being a avid student and follower of Dr. Wayne Dyer, whether it's his books or his speeches, lectures. Now, let's finish this out here, ladies and gentlemen. Open the lines of communication. You'll see that communicating rather than stifling yourself will end the rage almost immediately. Don't ever go to bed still holding on to your wrath. This will literally impact the field of energy that you both share and intensify the growth of a poison tree. Before going to sleep, simply state your feelings and make the effort to show a sign of affection, even if it means losing face and subduing your ego. See, that's one of the, it's always just about winning the argument. If we can get past wanting to win, then we realize we're fighting ourselves. The more you can create an atmosphere of open honesty, particularly regarding areas of disagreement, the less likely disagreements will become disagreeable. Wow, that's a deep one. It is in the time of being disagreeable that a seedling sprouts and even eventually nourishes a poison tree. So let me read that last line again. That was kind of densely packed in so few words. The more you can create an atmosphere of open honesty, so like continual, this is practice. Same thing with our mind here. If we're practicing stopping negative thoughts, you got to do it over and over. And the more you can create this atmosphere, when you're practicing this communication thing over time, it's not instant, particularly regarding areas of disagreement, the less likely disagreements will become disagreeable. I think what he means there is the less likely disagreements won't even pop up anymore. You won't choose them. No, because that goes back to the staying silent thing and then building the poison tree. The less likely disagreements will become disagreeable. The less likely these things that used to make you disagree, will they make you disagree any longer? So it'll be less often, the more that you practice this communication, this atmosphere of open honesty, the less often you will even choose to disagree in a situation when in the past it would have been a disagreement. It's good tea. Love that green tea kombucha Yogi brand. Put a little honey in there. And so if we begin to do this practice, and then the less often, it is in the time of being disagreeable that a seedling sprouts for a poison tree. So if we can practice this and begin to go beyond disagreement and silence and harboring resentments inside of us without communication, and break through to a space to where we have open honesty and a sharing of feelings and true expression. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you got value. If you did, consider subscribing, smash the like button. I love this one. I'll be back in the future with more wonderful wisdom of the ages. Tao Te Ching. Maybe we'll start doing Zen life, Zen athlete. My life's been kind of hectic here lately, so it's just been trying to, get the art of showing up, working out. And so I've been doing that with Tuesday Tao and Wednesday Wisdom. And so check the comments below. No, check the description below. Expand that and you'll see links to where you can purchase this book for yourself, as well as to my landscape paintings on my Etsy shop. And I really appreciate everybody that supports me. That really helps me, every bit of that. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Love y'all. Seek to achieve the wisdom of the ages and seek to maintain happiness through practice in your life. Stay good.